Witches, welcome to my parlor. Zoe Soul here, and today I'm going to talk with you about something that is really exciting for me, and that is channeling, specifically channeling spirit and channeling fairies. And this is a really fun one for me because it happens to be one of my strongest gifts. The way that I channel is there are two main ways. The first way is through automatic writing, which is basically the process of allowing spirit or source or fairies, or if you're working with a specific deity or god or goddess, to come through you and write through you, and basically use the pen and the paper as a tool to send you messages. And so I'll talk about that one first. But the other way that I channel is through singing. Whoop! And drumming. This is a buffalo head drum, and I love to use it. I use it a lot in ritual and ceremony, and I also sing into it because it's got a really nice resonance, and we'll talk about that as well. Before I dive in, I kind of want to share with you a little bit about my history. I grew up in a Catholic household, and my mom, although she's not Catholic anymore, she is Christian. My mom has always been very spiritual. And growing up, I remember that she had this journal that she would write in. And I asked her what it was when I was pretty young. And she explained to me that she would write letters to God, specifically to Jesus, because that was the entity, the deity that she really works closely with. And Jesus would write these letters back. And when he would write back, he would oftentimes have insight for her. He would give advice and suggestions into how to deal with her spirituality and things that were going on in the family. And oftentimes these writings had just very deep wisdom. Growing up, even though he didn't really talk about it, my mom had her own psychic gifts, and we didn't really talk about it. I actually think probably because of the religious upbringing, and it wasn't something that was very comfortable. And so of course, me being me, growing up to be a witch, I was like, I want to dive fully in and really discover what it's all about and what I can do with it. And so voila, channeling happens to be one of my favorite ways to connect, and it's also one of my strongest gifts, as I mentioned earlier. Before I dive into how I do it and ways that you can do it, let's talk about safety, because it's really important that you protect yourself. We live in a universe that has shadow and light. It all exists, and because it all exists, you have the highest, lightest, highest vibrational beings, and you've got the lowest vibrational beings. And I'm not going to label it good or bad, because part of my belief system is that it's not good or bad, they're just different ends of a spectrum. However, I will say that be very careful when you start this process, because you also want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And the way that you can do this is you can cast a circle. If you don't know how to cast a circle and you're a beginner witch, I have another video that I am going to create that will talk all about how to cast a circle. But basically, you're going to cast a circle around you. And as you cast a circle around you, you're going to honor the north, south, east, west, all of the directions, and call them in. And I actually like to call in what I call watchtowers. And that's basically the energy of each direction coming up and basically acting as guardians while I do my work. And what this does is it basically creates a barrier of protection for you so that only the spirits that you invite can come through. At that point, once you feel sufficiently protected, you're going to want to set your intention. So what is it that you're hoping to gain? Is it some kind of knowledge? Is it just that you're wanting to connect? If you're not really sure, I always say a good one to go to is, what do I need to know right now? What do I need to know on my path? Funny enough, I actually don't say words. It's more of a feeling for me. I will close my eyes and set my intention without words, and more of allowing the emotion of what I want to experience and what I want to invite in. So that is an emotion of generally peace and love and warmth and safety and protection. Once you've done that, then you have opened the doors for yourself to begin channeling. There are a few different energies that I channel. I can't talk freely about all of them because I do work a lot with Fae energy, and fairies are very tricky, and that some of them are totally fine to be talked about and to be shared about, and then others prefer to be in the shadow and they don't want to be in the public light at all. They don't want me to talk about them. So I respect that. So what I will say is I do work a lot with a goddess named Tonantzin, and she is an Aztec goddess. She came to me many years ago and I've worked with her a lot. I also channel with fairies. And the way that I do that is I actually used to give fairy readings where I would channel the fairy energies specific to that individual. I since have stopped doing it. I might pick it up again, but I've taken a little break because it does take a lot out of me energetically, and I just found that I needed to take a little break and focus on my own spirituality for a while. But the way that that works is I will tune into the energy of the person, and then I will ask the fairies to step forward, or the elementals to step forward that are working with that person that want to talk to me about them. And usually there's a ton that come through. And the way they come through for me is when I'm doing that work is I use the automatic writing. They come out like almost like I'm writing a script, and it's like all these voices coming in, and they're just talking, and they have tons to say, and they have very distinct personalities. And so what I do is I just open the book and I just begin writing, and I let whatever wants to come out, and I don't judge it. And I actually find that those things that I'm afraid to put on paper, because in my head I'm like, no, that's crazy, those usually happen to be the things that are right on. Those are usually the things where a client is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said this, because and they tell me something and I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost even didn't put that in there because I was worried about it. So it's always those like really wild out there things that you don't think are going to be accurate that usually end up resonating. If you find that your mind is spinning when you try it at first, I would recommend that you take your journal and you just give yourself a page or 2 or 3, however much you need, to just write whatever's on your mind. Just get all of that stuff out on the paper so that your mind isn't getting in the way of what wants to come through. So just write it all out, whatever it is. I'm stressed out, my boyfriend's bugging me, I'm worried about my job, whatever's on your mind that's like, stressing you out or spinning the wheels. Get it out on the paper so that it's not going to interrupt your channeling. Once you've done that and you feel like you've gotten it all out, then take a moment, take a few deep breaths, and just make the space and create the invitation for spirit to come through and to talk. You can ask for specific deities that you work with. You can ask for fairies to come through, or you can just ask spirit. Just, spirit, what do I need to know? I have spoken with angels, I have spoken with fairies, I have spoken with deities, and I have spoken with people who have passed. I have also spoken with spirit, the general, broad, overarching spirit. I actually feel like on some level that spirit is this energy and this force that's outside of me, but I also feel like it's deeply, deeply connected with me. Like it's my soul and all souls all at once. So hopefully that isn't too out there for you, but if you're watching this channel, you know what you came here for. So, and don't get discouraged if at first it seems like a lot of just jumbled up words and it doesn't make sense, because chances are it's going to be like that in the beginning. Eventually you'll find that sentences come through that were exactly what you needed to hear, and then full complete thoughts, and then full complete paragraphs, and before you know it, you'll find that these messages are coming through that even though you wrote it, it didn't come from you. And so you might ask me, well, how do I know it didn't come from me? And the answer is, I wish I could give you a very concrete answer, but I can't, other than to say, you just know. It's sort of like you're here in this physical body, in this physical mind, holding this book, getting ready, and then it's like you consciously kind of set yourself aside to allow something else to come through. And it's like being in a flow state. This is my kitty. She's going to be in the video now because she's made her presence very known. So don't judge yourself when you're doing this. Once again, just allow whatever to come through to come through. I would say that in the beginning, yeah, it might be a little weird and awkward, but eventually you will find that it's actually very relaxing and a lot can happen for you. It might just be one word some days, and then some days it might be whole paragraphs and even pages. So again, just let it be what it wants to be and trust that whatever it is going to be exactly right for you in that moment. Now I want to talk about singing. So this form of channeling, I really believe that I was doing ever since I was young. When I was a very little girl, I would make up these songs, and sometimes they had words, but a lot of times they didn't. And as a kid, it was just play. It was just what I did. And then eventually, as I got older, I stopped making up those songs. I started writing a lot because I've always loved writing, and that was great. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I got into this place where it's like, well, it had to make sense. And so I was not letting myself make up songs that, were wordless anymore. They had to have words. I really lost that until I got a little bit older. And I have to say that the first person to really open me up to that part again was Lisa Gerrard from Dead Can Dance. When I heard Lisa Gerrard, I was just like, I don't know, it was like my soul just got ripped open and resonated so deeply, and I was just like, what is this? Who is this beautiful, magnificent voice? I was brought to tears because something in me knew exactly what that was. And I became pretty obsessed with her pretty quickly and watched a bunch of interviews. And in one interview, she talked about her vocalizations being wordless and allowing these, vocalizations to come through. And she called them the utterance of the soul. And when she said that, it was just so beautiful to me. I began to allow myself to experiment with that. And it first started through meditation. I was meditating every day. And as I began meditating, I started doing this rocking thing that just kind of overtook my body. As that happened, I started to speak in tongues. And I say speak in tongues because of my, my Catholic upbringing, but really this is like a very old ancient practice that has happened for, centuries in many different cultures. This is not just specific to like evangelicals. Speaking in tongues, the language of light, or this soul language, is something that is very intuitive to the human spirit. And it's something that we can tap into when we are in a trance-like state. So it started off as kind of this like speaking in tongues thing that was happening to me. And it scared me a little bit at first, but then I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna allow myself to follow it. As I continue to do this, and I also continue to amp up my witchcraft, I started opening myself up to singing in that language. And when I allowed myself to sing in that language, it felt right. It was like, oh, this is what my soul has been trying to do for as long as I can remember. I do write lyrics, and I am in a band, and I love that. And I also think that that's a form of channeling, but there's something really unique and very, very healing about allowing yourself to sing sounds and play with sounds and let them trip across your tongue and play across your tongue in a language that is ancient and old and alien and yet so human at the same time. The only way that I can describe it is that it is deeply, deeply, deeply connecting for me and my spirituality. And I can't help but feel I'm also connecting with my ancestors, and I am connecting with the elementals and with the fairies, because I do feel like it's a language that they pick up on. I do also use a drum. Generally, I try to keep it a steady, slow beat, and that will get me into this trance-like state. And then once I'm in that state, I will begin singing. I use this a lot during ritual and ceremony, and in fact, I am creating on my YouTube channel a little series of music that is that language. So you'll get to experience it. Sound is so powerful, and we can do so much with sound. It's very primal, and it is just an amazing, amazing tool. So that's another one that I really encourage you to explore. Just let yourself start to play with singing, and don't necessarily try to put words to it. Allow sounds to form and just see what happens. Let yourself do it from a sense of play, from a place of play, because that's what all of this is. At its core, channeling, witchcraft, spell work, and real magic is play. And so when we can tune into that side of ourselves that is curious, imaginative, creative, and has a bunch of wonder about the universe, that part of us that really doesn't think anything is impossible, but believes that everything is possible. When we can tune into that part of ourselves, we have tuned into the creator energy. And the creator energy is the goddess energy. That's the manifesting energy. And that is also the energy of magic. The portal and the vehicle to get there is through play, imagination, and wonder. So if you're thinking that it's the tool is just a tool. The tool can't do anything on its own. The tool needs you to come through and to be the spark, to be the catalyst. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful night.